Welcome to a abbreviated garden tour for September 2024. I'm not going to go through and name every plant, and you're going to see things looking a little rough. I didn't even go through and try to prep anything, but I wanted to do this so when I can watch over the winter next year that I'll remember it. First thing you'll see, it's Halloween at my house because I like to pull those out on Labor Day weekend. And things are just generally looking pretty rough, pretty done. I have not been watering as much because it's just too much to keep up with at this point in the year. You can see I've got a lot of like powdery mildew happening. But overall, oh, I did have 2 surprise dahlias. I know I pointed out this one ends up being red, like a Winnie the Pooh red, and that's my dinner plate, but I only got 1 dahlia off of it. I will say it was kind of nice this year. What I did, the zinnias had enough space, so they did a nice flush of color in the front. The black-eyed Susans filled up really nicely. The Chinese foreign marbles took over this whole area. I'm pretty sure the azalea bush is now dead because of that. And I'm really glad that I moved my limelight over here because it was much nicer over here. I'm very full, so I'm hoping I can use some of these blossoms dried this year. Another really big winner for me was this mini zinnia here, this mini apricot bush. It was really pretty, had really pretty flowers. I dried a bunch of them. Hopefully I'll be able to use them. This always ends up looking nicer at this time of the year, my osteospermum. Mums are coming out. This was a surprise. I didn't plant this, but very pretty. These flowers look pretty rough. They're actually getting smaller, so probably not much longer on those either. My gomphrena is kicking off, and these snapdragons did really nicely. My basket's about done. My lilac looks beautiful. My lilac's huge. I've got an errant foxglove coming back up. I mean, I guess it's not errant, but usually they only bloom in the spring, but it's shooting up little tiny stalks. So that's good. Hopefully that'll maintain its presence there. And these snapdragons have already bloomed. I cut them back. They're kind of blooming again. But yeah, so that is, I mean, I guess we'll swing to this side, but over here I just still have more of the mallows. They kind of got some rust going on. And that's pretty much all. Oh, it does look like that little dahlia came back up. I thought it was gone. My butterfly bush, of course, looks beautiful. And that is my front garden. All right, so stepping now through to my vegetable garden. I think we'll actually start this side this time. So I had a couple of the Mexican sunflowers come up on their own, and I left them. They do add nice pops of color up front here. That sunflower that I toyed around with cutting down multiple times ended up actually being like this really pretty color sunflower here. Look at that. I'm trying to get it out. So see, in the sun it's still really dark. So I'm glad that happened. This cosmos looks pretty rough, but the flowers are really pretty along with this one. Didn't plant those, they just came up on their own. Now I did plant this Thai chili pepper here. So I've been taking the peppers as they turn red and I'm drying them out, and I'll make my own sweet chili sauce. Over here, this pot has another Mexican sunflower growing in it. This one looks like it has a lot of dill and calendula. So that's interesting. It was poppies, but I have some sunflowers here. I've got, of course, more cosmos going on. I've got whatever in the world. Like, I know it's amaranth, but I have never had an amaranth that color. This thing is beautiful. So I don't know where it came from, but I'm hoping to save some seeds from that. I have an elephant ear here. I tried keeping it in a pot just to see how that would grow. It's not growing super great. I mean, it's still here, but I probably won't do that again. And I also planted an echinacea here, so we'll see if that sticks. My hot peppers did pretty well this year. They kind of still stayed on the small side, which was kind of a bummer for poppers, but I've still been able to make a fair amount. My Fresnos did really well this year. I was able to freeze a whole bunch, so I should have fresh, well, not fresh, but frozen Fresnos for the rest of the year. So looking forward to that. Oh, look, still hard at work. More cosmos that I didn't plant. There's also another amaranth here. Now this is my Coral Falls. I did plant this last year, but I didn't plant it this year. So that came back and actually better than when I planted it. More Mexican sunflowers going on. My bell peppers were kind of a bust again this year. My assumption's a few things. First, I think this bed is starting to not get as much sunlight because of my tree line. And I think too, I let so many random plants grow that it kind of shaded them out or took away their nutrients, something like that. So hoping to figure out something better for next year. I did plant 2 dahlias at the back of this bed. This dahlia was in my front bed last year, my like bright Halloween orange dahlia. But when I moved it to this bed, it turned into more of like a peach coral orange. Oh wait, here is one. I didn't even notice it. Look. Look how pretty. I just love this one, so can't wait to keep those seeds. And I also had a couple sunflowers pop up in here, aiding to the stealing of nutrients to my poor bell peppers. I also have a couple green bean plants going here. I had to pull them out and restart them because they got moldy. But they don't get enough sunlight because of everything growing up, so they don't look great. My floral green stock, I actually did not do super great on this one this year either. I think again it goes to show that this area is not getting as much sunlight as it used to, and I left more pockets empty, or I did put seeds in them and they just didn't come up because it was just too shaded. Now I do have a couple of the perennial plants that are kind of taking up the space and loving their life inside of this. But yeah, this is the newest green stock I got this year. I was trying to turn this into my strawberry green stock, which I've successfully done for the first 3 rows, between buying a couple to start and also transplanting the couple from here into here. They look fantastic. And then I took up the rest of the spaces with snapdragons I'd already grown and then herbs that I'd already grown, just so that I had something in there so they weren't empty. I haven't really been using the herbs. I've been leaving them for pollinators, and I don't know, it seems to work for me. But I do still have my strawberry bucket here. They, again, don't look super great. Probably not getting enough sunlight because I put this giant tower here, but I'll probably move it around next year. And I did add a garden hook with a hummingbird feeder and a basket that I just had snapdragons, which they're pretty much done. I also had this pot that I planted some cosmos in. They didn't do well, and then sunflowers grew inside of it anyway. So, but I do have a mallow coming up. My arch, if you can see, is covered. I had a random some sort of squash plant growing, and it's a ginormous one, and it took over my entire thing. It's got these really cool things on them. Let me see if I can find one. Here's one. You can't even see it because it's dark green. Maybe I'll show it to you on the actual. There we go. So I haven't done anything with it because it sort of looks zucchini-ish to me, also looks gourdish to me, but there's a thing called like toxic squash. So you don't want to eat random squashes that grew because it could like upset your tummy. So I just didn't feel like risking it. I risked it last year and it was fine. I got like a spaghetti squash sort of thing, but I just decided not to this year. I'm just enjoying watching them grow. This pot here was really full and beautiful. I had these mini little rose bushes in here, and I don't know what happened, but it lost all of its leaves, and there's only like a couple good stems now growing. But I can see there's like bacterial spot on a lot of my snapdragons, so I do need to come in here and like shore that all down. I tried to throw some hyacinth runner beans. They're sort of there. I've got more sweet peas going, and this is where I planted my precious metal zinnias from Floret this year. And they've been pretty, and they did pretty well inside these buckets. Oh, look, I'm getting another straw flower. That's cool. I did not plant that Rudbeckia. I did not plant the wild carrots, of course. I'll go ahead and swing around my greenhouse here. So I did this little garden of just like zinnias, cosmos, like those sort of random things. This is where the squash came into play. Must have had a random seed. I also planted my cold crops that I had left over but no room for in here, and they're doing fantastic. I have 3 really great dino kales in there. I'm pretty sure that's a Brussels sprout growing in the middle. And then this squash kind of took over the whole thing, which is kind of swallowing my zinnias. I will say that's one thing I learned. This side of the greenhouse doesn't get enough, I guess, sunlight because it got really bad powdery mildew. So they're still kind of growing here and there, but you can tell they're in much rougher shape than the other zinnias. So cosmos here. That one, there's a cosmos under that jungle too, but the deer kept eating it down, but I wasn't upset about that. I'd rather them eat that than my vegetables. Oh my gosh, this gourd looks different. It's not as dark. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. I do have some random celosia. It's the pink flamingo. I grew a couple starts, and I planted a few in here, but it seems like more than what I planted are coming up. I'm pretty sure that's a broccoli, so I'm waiting to see if that heads up. Yep, and I think this is also Brussels sprout or broccoli. I don't think it's broccoli. Might be cauliflower. And then we have the same pot on this side, which also has, couldn't grab it, a Floret precious metals. Very pretty. Also has the mini rose bush snapdragons. And this side of the pot looks much better than the other. Also has a random tomato. All right, now I'm gonna kind of swing around and let's go in my garden this way. I will say I have mixed emotions because this sea of flowers and wildlife, and it created like this beautiful secret garden that was so much fun this year. It did cause me some issues with like sunlight and stuff like that because it's too full and shadowing out some of the things that I was trying to grow. So I haven't decided how I truly feel about it. I really love it, but then I'm also like, I don't know if I want to do it again next year. But I also think it saved my garden from the deer this year. It's the first year I didn't have to put up a deer fence, and I haven't had any issues with my produce for the most part. Oh look, I didn't even notice that. Nice little black prints, I'm pretty sure. Black prints. In my greenhouse, currently I've got some seeds going for fall. I decided to take it easy this year because for some reason I'm kind of burnt out of gardening more so than I was last year. So I only have some cabbage, some spinach, and the rest is just lettuce. I did plant carrots as well. And since I have random cold crops still growing from the spring, I'm just gonna deal with that. I do have some pink princess philodendron out here. I was trying to see if I could propagate it. It might be getting too cold because I can see it kind of wilting in some areas, but trying it anyway. These baskets that I had in the spring were really pretty, but it finally just got way too hot in here, and those plants just burnt to death. Like the mint is still recovering from being burnt, And the thing was, it wasn't they were missing water because they were like holding water. It was just literally being fried from the heat and the sunlight into the greenhouse. So I had to take those out, and I put in this clearance portulaca that I found at Walmart. And those things have filled the baskets beautifully and added nice color. So I've been enjoying that. And Status was a big hit for me this year. I only got yellow and purple, but they preserve really nicely, so I'm excited to do some crafts this winter with those. And I think that's majority going on in here. The other things on my arch that I was trying to grow, so I did throw some radish to kind of deter bugs, and the radish did super well. So now I'm just leaving it because it's flowers. I do have a cantaloupe one here, and I got one small cantaloupe, and I've got a couple small ones coming yet. The small one that I did eat was delicious. And it took all year, my goodness, these radishes. It took all year, but my butterfly pea has finally kicked off. I'm hoping that it's soon enough in the season that I might actually get a couple flowers to make tea out of, but we'll see. Look at this. Look at how many of these things there are. And they've kind of captured the sunflowers. The butterfly pea on this side is not kicked off as much. I also found cucamelons coming back, of course. So I moved one of them over here, and they're putting off some stuff as well, getting mixed in there. And I planted a hyacinth runner bean, which is adding some fun purple flowers to the top there. Finishing up this bed, this tomato I messed up hard. I accidentally topped it. So I've been trying to let the side shoots run, but I only got like 3 tomatoes off of it. And that's my purple Cherokee, which is pretty upsetting. But my striped German did pretty well. I got a couple big tomatoes, and then I let the side shoots stay on so they're smaller, but I have a decent amount still that I can harvest. These nasturtiums were also a huge winner. This is the purple trailing nasturtium. Like, it looks pretty in this bed, but on this side, look at that. It actually trailed the whole way out, creating this beautiful nasturtium canopy. Pretty happy about that. I haven't even seen this dahlia yet this year. I have a couple buds, so hopefully soon. Well, let's do this side. So this is my dahlia bed for the year. I've got a beautiful blue spice basil in this area. My 2 tomatoes on this are my Robeson and my Black Beauty. Kind of slow on tomato production again this year. This one I did end up having a pest issue. We're pretty sure it was a fox, just like came in and took a couple bites of my tomatoes for the water content. So like I couldn't use those. But it's coming back. They're smaller because I let the side shoots go, but at least I'll have enough hopefully to put up some sauce for the winter. And I've had really not great success with dahlias this year. Like, some of them are doing fantastic and just some of them are not. So this Cafe au Lait looks pretty bad, which is kind of annoying to me because that's the one that I've really wanted this whole time. And it was one of my more expensive ones. But the tubers kept rotting out and dying, and I still haven't seen a single bloom, so I doubt that I will. But this one is new to me this year too. It's called Daydream. It's very pretty. But you can see I'm also getting a lot of powdery mildew in my dahlia bed. And again, I think that's because I decided to leave like the calendula. There was so much calendula that grew in here, and I left it because there was no dahlia flowers and I thought it was pretty, but I think it was like at the detriment of my dahlias, unfortunately. So I won't do that again, but you live and learn. This one, there's no flowers on it right now, but this is another one of my more pricey dahlias. It's called Daddy's Girl, and it's just this beautiful blush white and pink dahlia. This one, this one is called Frank Holmes. I probably need to read the well, not instructions, but descriptions a little better, because while that thing is super cute, it does not belong in a dahlia bed like this. That's more of like a pot plant. So I will not plant it in here again next year. But my lucky number finally came out, and they're gorgeous. Big. It's the biggest dahlia I think I have this year besides the Daydream. My Arabian Nights were the shows again. And these flowers are just so pretty. Like, I prefer them when you can't see the middle. So I like to pick them when they're more like this style. But they're so prolific and they come up like first. It's kind of great. I also have a dahlia here. I don't know why there's a stone in my bed, but I have a dahlia here that hasn't bloomed yet either. It's called the Nettie. But thankfully I saved my Cornell Bronze because those are also gorgeous. And I saved my Caitlin's Joy, which is also one of my favorites now. I didn't think it would be because it was described as hot pink, but it has so many variations of color. It just fits so nicely in like any bouquet. I think there's one more inside of there somewhere that hasn't bloomed yet, but I don't know for sure. And this is the other one I got this year. This is called Wizard of Oz. It's very pretty too. This is actually finally producing long enough stems to cut to put in arrangements, because when it first started they were really shrimpy. But this green stalk has some of my cold crop still from the spring. I've just let them go, see what happens. I do have a serrano pepper. I have some green beans going in here that are actually producing beans. I have some lettuce I started inside here on the one row. I've got carrots I reseeded. Probably need to turn it anyway. Looks like I'm about to get at least a little bit of broccoli off of this. I do have some dahlias back here as well. I don't see any. Oh, yes, I do. All right, let me see if I can step through here. There we go. That's my white blizzard. I kind of just leave those tubers over the winter and somehow they still live. But this was also another fun sunflower patch this year. Most of these were sunflowers that came back and or I transplanted. A few of them were seeds that I started. I've got random borage coming up, which also not mad about because I think they're so cool. And that pot back there has a little bit of stalk still left from spring, and it was where I was growing a majority of my status. And it did really well in that pot and that location, so that's good. I did also replant this bed with my carrot seeds. I can see a little bit of spotty germination in some areas, but I'm gonna wait for them to get a little bit bigger before I start thinning them out more. Random basils and portulacas I found around the house that I put into a pot, and also this random chamomile or daisy. I'm not really sure what it is, but I found it and it was pretty, and I put it in a pot. I also have like the only successful squash plant of this entire year. I think I've started squash at least 6 times, and something just always eats the top of it, and then I lose the seed altogether, which kind of stinks, but you know, pest problems, I guess. But this one's a patty pan. I've only gotten one large patty pan off of it so far, and I'll probably pick that one when I get back from my work trip this week. These bins were like sweet peas. They died out. I replanted, put some random stuff in there, nasturtiums, more sweet peas. And also I had random Emerald Falls amaranth, or Emerald Tassels amaranth. Put those in there. A random tomato came up. It's pretty tiny. Yeah. That's a bunch of random. I think in that pot I put the garlic chives along with something else. That all looks like basil to me. So I don't know. Maybe I threw basil in it. I don't know. This was my lettuce and cold crop patch. Thankfully, it's doing pretty well. I've got more dino kale, blue kale, and scarlet kale. My arugula came back full force. Another random tomato that I didn't plant. I did buy a Swiss chard, which I don't really eat. I mostly buy it because it's pretty. And I've got a nice trailing nasturtium here too. And it's literally like trailing back along the bed. And I'm hoping that some of the lettuce that was planted here reseeded and comes back up. I only see 2 lettuces right now. So otherwise I'll just leave that bed empty and see what happens. My raspberries this year were incredible. I have so many bags of frozen raspberries in the freezer, and I also did a lot of fresh eating, and we also made raspberry jam. It's the most prolific year I think I've ever had with raspberries, and they're delicious. I believe they're both the heritage variety. My one concern though is it's coming out of my bed, and I ripped them out before, but they're in there in 3 different locations now. So I'm gonna have to rip them out again, but this one has it's gonna give me berries, so I'm kind of holding off. I also have a random dahlia here that I was recuperating. That is the iced tea dahlia, and it hasn't gotten any bigger, so I don't have much hope for it. This was the majority of my cold crops. I tried replanting green beans. It didn't really take. And some of the cold crops are trying to come back, but they're not going to do anything. This dahlia I actually didn't plant, and this was one I wasn't planning on saving. Because what happens with this one, so it starts out like this, and it's beautiful. Those colors are so striking. But it immediately starts to open and goes right to being fluffy like this. And these don't last very long then in a jar because they just lose their petals quickly. So I don't know. I might save it just to save it because it is really pretty. But it survived last year after I probably almost killed it. So in my cold crop bed, I do still have 2 Brussels sprouts. I think I may actually get Brussels sprouts for the first time ever. So I've left them this whole season, fingers crossed, and we'll go from there. Random cosmos that grew that I then put into a bag, and my tunnel. So I have my sweet potatoes growing in this bag in this corner again. And I started looping them into the tunnel, and then they're blooming a little bit. So I'm hoping I have a nice sweet potato harvest. I also threw in a hyacinth runner bean just because I think they're pretty. But my tomatoes are also very pretty. So I have... and this basil also is doing amazing. Oh, here's another nasturtium too. This is like the peach Melba. It's not a trailing one, but it's big and bulky, which is nice. There's some disease going on here, as you can tell. This is my Roselle tomato. And then I have my purple bumblebee, which is putting off really big cherry tomatoes, which is kind of cool. And then this one is just my Sweet 100 cherry tomato, which has been the most prolific this whole time. On this side, well, let's start here. I guess I have some cucumbers left here. They were the pickling variety. Probably need to pick these. And they're still hanging on. I tried planting new ones that would be bigger, and they just aren't really taking either. So I have my Napa Blush here. That one had a really rough start. It kept getting broken, or something would eat them, and just the fruit kept breaking. So I wasn't too hopeful about it, but it's coming back. I have some coming on now, and I just broke more off. I'm probably the issue here. My middle one here is my yellow pear. So they're like pear-shaped yellow tomatoes. And my friends that like tomatoes, just to eat them right off the vine, because that's not me, said this is the best yellow tomato I've ever grown. So I'll probably continue growing that one. And then at the very end here is one of my faves. It's called the black cherry tomato. But this one also had a really rough life, and I'm only now just starting to get some of those cherry tomatoes to eat with like my dinners and stuff. So overall, it was a good year, but also not a good year. I think I'm going to start having more issues with sunlight because as my trees are growing, they're kind of potentially taking more, or I just let too much other stuff grow. It's an issue. I have no idea. But yeah, so that's my vegetable garden this year. So let's go ahead onto the patio. So looking at my patio, my pots did relatively well this year. This one looks lighter in leaves because as they burned, I cut them off this year. There's more I need to cut, of course, but the sweet potato vines did good. And like this one I didn't plant, it just came back on its own and it looks fantastic, just spilling over. This one, this side is spilling over. And I also have some random anise growing in a few areas, which has been kind of cool. Kind of have this table on the way now. We got this off of somebody giving it away. I spray painted it, made it pretty, and now I have a cute little seating area. But next to the seating area, I have this clearance mandevilla I got. That was a really pretty yellow. This is again my flamingo celosia, which is awesome. I love to cut those and put them in little bouquets. This was supposed to be a fire red pepper, but it was cross-pollinated, I think, with a jalapeno, so it kind of doesn't have a lot of taste. Not very useful, but oh well. This pot did really well this year. I've got like this mini petunia vista thing, this geranium, which I thought I hated geraniums, but man, I love this thing, especially the bright colors. And there is a sweet pea regrowing in the back, so hopefully that will keep going as it gets colder. More anise, more random basil. This pot was pretty for most of the season. It was my least favorite combination that I did. This vista, I think this was I think it was midnight, was really pretty. It was so full, it took over the whole basket, but it started getting kind of not pretty. So I sheared it back after fertilizing, and I tried to keep up with fertilizing, and it just kind of never bounced back from that. It definitely killed my double petunia, my Priscilla, that was pink. The Super Bells is doing really well, so they still look good. The Lantana's still doing good. The Gomphrina's okay. It didn't do as much as I'd hoped. And the Canna Lily worked out nicely. It was a cool pink. I think my only issue with the Canna Lily is it really bloomed that one time, and then that was that. So I don't know if I'll do the Canna Lily thing again. I'll just throw them in a garden bed next year. And the Snapdragons were really pretty because, again, I did the Black Prince. So there are a couple phases where it was really pretty, but overall I think it was my least favorite combo. Still have a portulaca going there. Over here, this was also one of my favorite combos. So this kind of ended up being my slightly tropical area. So I had nasturtiums. They were jewel nasturtiums, which they should have been a mix of colors. They all ended up being orange, which I think ended up being perfect because I had the orange nasturtiums with the hot pink bubblegum petunia and verbena with the light kind of electric purple of the lemon mint. And then I had dill, which was yellow, which worked really great. But as the dill died, these apple blossom snapdragons kicked in. So now I've got like another version of pink. And then the stevia adds a nice light green to the whole situation. The bacopa also was really cool. It kind of engulfed this lantern. So at night, it's like this soft glowing light over here too. And I also now have a random borage popping up. So I'll also now have blue added to the mix. These are pretty cosmos. I did plant these. I never know what color they're gonna be, but pretty. This was my blue petunia and a yellow petunia, and for some reason the yellow petunia died and lettuce took its place. Not really sure how that happened, but I'm not gonna complain. It's still pretty, along with my blue I said, what did I say? They're pansies, I'm sorry. But this blue pansy, I wasn't sure that I would like it, and I ended up loving this pansy. That color is just so striking. Another pot that was my favorite for most of the year, it's kind of dying out now, which makes sense, but these apple blossom snapdragons came back from last year and they were full and beautiful. And the euphorbia took over nicely. And these petunias, they were called ginger snap. They were so full all over this whole planter. They're kind of just dying out now. And then this verbena was called lobster roll. And just the combination all together, for somebody that doesn't care for the color red, that one really took the cake for me. And then of course my strawberry banana lantana, because I can't not have my lantanas. Then I have some purple basil and some cinnamon basil. This pot was, well, not pot, but this was sort of an experiment this year. I usually do my cilantro and parsleys in this area. I added some alyssum that I grew from seed just to see what would happen. And it took over the whole thing, which I actually think is fantastic. My parsley's still doing just fine. I added some chives because I liked the purple flowers. A random pansies growing in here. My cilantro did well for a while, and I do have a couple seedlings popping up, but I haven't really gotten cilantro for a while. And there's also a random portulaca. So then I have another thing of alyssum with coleus, and this was my variegated fish pepper. It took me several tries to get any of my pepper plants to kick off this year, and it's just not getting enough sunlight. Like, I really like the location looks wise, but it just doesn't get enough sunlight. So in this pot, it has a sweet potato vine. I had like this mocha petunia, an apple blossom geranium, this different type, it's like a pink euphorbia, but like a smoky pink, and then a canna lily, which is just now blooming. Again, lack of sunlight. And this bed that I created this year, I'm a little concerned that the Baptisia doesn't get enough sunlight either, and it may not come back. But I have a pink delphinium someone gave me. I threw in sunflower seeds, and you can see the difference. So there's 4 here that are somewhat tall. I did the same amount of seeds over here, and there's so many more. Again, I think it's just the amount of sunlight. Sorry, I just noticed one of my plants knocked over. I'll fix it then. I still have some cold crops going in there too. I did harvest the head of broccoli because it was about to flower. And I have these emerald tassels, again, beautiful. Didn't grow them or didn't plant them, but they're beautiful, so I've left them. This should be cauliflower, and it's pretty pest ridden, so I'm not sure if I'll get any. I've got another dahlia here that I did not plant, so I don't know what it will be. I'm assuming purple tutti frutti, but I don't know. My elephant ear here looks good, and I have an aster growing back there. Cosmos that don't look good. The lamium's beautiful. I'm so glad I got that. I also cut the broccoli off of this, and it's not doing hot, so that's probably going to come out. And I have some redbud seedlings that I've been growing. Among other random things. Oh yeah, this catmint's also really pretty. I'm really glad I got that, so hopefully that continues to spread. This bed, there's not really much to mention. I will say my lavender harvest this year was pretty sparing because I think the tree's gotten so large that, again, doesn't get enough sunlight, and a lot of it died out. But it's still kicking, still there. So I'll watch it. I may add more, or I may find a new location for lavender. The marigolds are okay, but you know, I just put them there because it's tradition. All right, so back to the patio. So here's the plant that knocked over. I was like, what is that? Coleus is just too tall, catching the wind. So yeah, that had coleus and alyssum in it. This begonia, along with the double impatiens and the dichondra, that's been one of my favorite pots this year. Just very pretty. And also this one was my favorite. It doesn't look great right now, but the Dusty Miller with this mini begonia with the alyssum spilling off the side, and that geranium called Martha Washington. Yep, perfection. And I've got a lemon tree. I'm retrying. Hopefully I don't kill it this year. Looks really good so far. Over to this space, I have my spearmint here. I have a berries and cream mint. I put a little succulent there, and I have holy basil along with purple basil and pineapple mint and a fresh bouquet I made. And the only other thing I have is some portulaca and another really cute begonia. She actually was my least favorite this year, but she kind of picked up the slack, so she's looking better now. Yeah, we'll walk out to the shed. I think the most notable thing back here for the year is Caleb has been getting really into composting and created himself a second bin. So he's been really working at creating like a compost situation so that we can use our own soil as much as we can anyway. This was the one he made last year, and it's pretty much mostly soil, so we're going to be sifting this one out soon and adding it to my garden beds to rest over winter. This thing, like, this thing looks rough. I don't know if it looks rough just because of the time of year or if it's like suffering. I keep it watered. I did try and grow raspberries back here. Not raspberries, radishes. And if you see these little indents here, I have a little froggy friend who lives there. I left him a lavender, I keep using the wrong words. I left him a raspberry, and I don't see the raspberry anymore, so he must have eaten it. I still have chocolate mint, portulaca's there. All right, we're gonna start back here with my side garden. The wind is increasingly picking up, so if it's getting harder to hear me, that's probably why. I do have the peppermint that I planted this year still going. It's doing really well. I keep trying to keep it trimmed. I have a random tomato that I did not plant that is here, and the fruit is really delicious. I have my big elephant ear here. This guy loves its life in this location, so that's probably where I'll keep the majority of them. And I have that cucamelon. I said that I pulled one of the sprouts out. The rest of it's here. And it has gone this direction and this direction. And I've gotten a fair amount of cucamelons off of it. I love to put them on like a charcuterie board for guests. And it's always a nice topic of conversation because somebody says, oh my gosh, what is this thing? I don't actually care for them food-wise. So whenever I do find someone that is on the positive side of the polarization, that is cucamelons, I end up picking them and giving it to them. On to here, I tried to kill my goldenrod and it said no with a vengeance. So I have goldenrod, but it's okay. I like it in this area. I'll probably have to keep it trimmed back though. Otherwise, I had some pretty zinnias I planted here. My mother bought seeds off of Amazon that were supposed to be hibiscus, and she asked me to grow them for her, which I was like, I bet you they're not hibiscus, and they absolutely were not. They were morning glories. So I've been trying to pull them out, but I've kind of given up. They just are intermixed wherever they want to be intermixed at this point. So, oh well. I do also have a dahlia back here. It's my Arabian Nights, but also kind of prettier, to be honest, in this location because it's darker. I didn't pull it up last year, so I did not think that it would live, but apparently it's gonna live. Sorry, the sunflower grabbed a hold of me and then I knocked my light off. Okay. So there's all of this mess, but lovely mess. A Chinese four marble came with the hydrangea apparently. So I may have that to look forward to in this garden. We'll see if I keep it or not. But the hydrangea, I'm so glad I moved it here. It had so many blossoms. It really prefers this location. The only thing is I do need to add drip irrigation because it is a water hog and I could not water it enough. I still have some bronze fennel. I did put a Mexican sunflower there, which they look so much nicer when you direct seed them because they get taller, and so that's been fun. This hibiscus was beautiful this year, and you can see the cucamelons made its way out here. My pink lavender looks good, which is good. I did try and plant some squash here, which the plants lived. I was thinking, you know, diversifying pests, but I haven't gotten any squash off of them yet. The black hollyhocks were great. I still need to save some of the seeds off of them. more goldenrod, sunflowers. What else did I put in here? Just random. There was a really pretty zinnia. Oh, look, my asters, the plant that I couldn't identify in the beginning. I'm so glad that I didn't pull it out because it's beautiful. That comfrey has gotten to be a beast. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up killing the one peony I had survive. More amaranth going on here. Very pretty. Also very pretty hyacinth runner bean. I did also replant this basket to put portulaca, which it's doing okay. I also picked up that geranium once I realized, hey, I kind of like geraniums. The sage still looks beautiful. I've got some more celosia. I think this one, forget what this one was called. Someone gave me a plant of it once and I've had it ever since. My mallow's all kind of done. My larkspur's all done. There's cosmos intermixed here. Oh yeah, look how cool this celosia gets. Sometimes it's like fun shapes. Yeah, I think the only thing potentially worth noting is my zinnias were really great this spring, but I do have some work to do. I need to dig them up and separate them and all that stuff because they need some maintenance. I do have some more powdery mildew issues. I've got this ajuga here, which is still pretty. And my pots here. Oh, one thing for myself for the future, Angelonia is really pretty as a centerpiece, so I may try that out next year in some of my pots. But yeah, so this year was another year full of fun new things that I tried. A lot of success, a lot of failures, kind of leaning into the flowers a lot more. I really enjoy fresh flowers and cutting them and making myself bouquets or handing them out as gifts. But I do need to work on my vegetables a little more because I do also have a passion for growing my own food, being able to go outside and pick dinner, you know, and preserving it so that I can eat as fresh as I can the rest of the year. So I'll have to do some reworking of my vegetable bed, see what I can come up with, get some more fertilization going on in there. But yeah, otherwise, I'd call this a pretty successful 2024 year and can't wait for the next one. Thanks for watching.